Captain Lee Jinwoo floated in the observation module of the International Space Station, his usual routine of monitoring Earth's weather patterns interrupted by an unexpected flash of light near Jupiter. At first, he thought it might be a solar reflection, but the light didn't fade. Instead, it grew brighter, splitting into multiple points that shimmered like new stars. "Dr. Kim," he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "Could you verify something for me?" Dr. Kim Hannah pushed away from her workstation, gliding through the module with practiced ease. Her long hair was tied back in a neat bun, and her expression turned from mild curiosity to shock as she looked through the window. "Those aren't natural phenomena," she whispered, quickly moving to the sensor array. Her fingers flew over the controls as she adjusted their deep space monitoring equipment. "The computer is picking up massive objects, each one larger than anything humanity has ever built. They're ships, Captain." Jinwoo felt his heart race but maintained his composure. Years of training had prepared him for extraordinary situations, though perhaps not quite this extraordinary. "Contact mission control. They need to know about this immediately." As Hannah relayed their discovery to Earth, the objects grew more distinct. They were indeed ships, but their design defied conventional engineering. Instead of metal and sharp angles, they appeared almost organic, with smooth curves and surfaces that seemed to pulse with internal light. The communication system suddenly crackled to life with an unexpected signal. Both astronauts froze as their speakers, filled with a series of musical tones that gradually transformed into recognizable speech. "This is Fleet Commander Dalyi of the Galaxian Emergency Fleet," a voice announced in surprisingly clear English. "We request immediate assistance. Our ships are failing, and we have thousands of civilians aboard." Jinwoo exchanged glances with Hannah before responding. "This is Captain Lee Jinwoo of the International Space Station. We're receiving your transmission clearly. Please state the nature of your emergency." There was a pause before Dalyi responded, their voice carrying a note of desperation that transcended species. "Our quantum drive systems are critically damaged. We've been traveling for months, searching for a civilization advanced enough to help us. Your world was our last hope before our life support systems fail completely." Over the next hour, the situation became clearer. The Galaxians were a spacefaring species who had been forced to evacuate their colony after a nearby star became unstable. Their fleet of 15 massive ships carried over 50,000 survivors, but the hasty evacuation and long journey had taken its toll on their vessels. Hannah worked quickly to establish a basic translation matrix as more data came in. "Their technology is far beyond ours," she reported, "but it's failing in ways they can't fix with their remaining resources. They need raw materials and safe harbor for repairs." Meanwhile, Earth's governments were thrown into chaos by the news. Emergency meetings were called, military forces were put on alert, and scientists worldwide began analyzing the data streaming in from the space station. Jinwoo found himself acting as the first human diplomat to an alien species, a role he never imagined he'd play. "We'll help however we can," he assured Dalyi, "but we need time to organize our response." "Time," Dalyi replied softly, "is something we have precious little of. Our primary life support systems will begin to fail within 72 Earth hours. The children and elderly will be the first affected." That detail changed everything. Jinwoo looked at Hannah, seeing his own determination reflected in her eyes. "Send us all the technical data you can," he said. "Our entire planet's resources will be dedicated to helping you." The next few hours were a blur of activity. The space station became the central point of communication between Earth and the Galaxian fleet. Jinwoo and Hannah worked in shifts, coordinating with ground control while learning more about their unexpected visitors. The Galaxians, they discovered, were a peaceful species who had achieved space travel centuries ago. Their society valued art and science equally, and their ships were as much works of art as they were technological marvels. But now those same ships were failing, their bioorganic systems struggling to maintain the delicate balance needed to keep their passengers alive. As the first day drew to a close, Jinwu took a moment to float by the observation window again. The Galaxian ships had moved closer, now visible as enormous shapes that dwarfed anything humans had ever built. Their surfaces rippled with patterns of light that Hannah theorized were signs of their failing systems. "It's remarkable," Hannah said, joining him at the window. "Of all the places they could have found in the galaxy, they found us." Jinwu nodded. "And now we have to prove they made the right choice." He watched as another pattern of light rippled across the nearest ship's hull. "We may not have their level of technology, but humanity has always been good at finding unexpected solutions." As if in response to his words, the first breakthrough came from an unlikely source. A marine biology team in South Korea suggested that certain Earth algae species might be compatible with the Galaxians' bioorganic systems. It wasn't a complete solution, but it was a start. The report of this potential help brought the first sign of real hope to Dali's voice. "Perhaps," they said, "the universe guided us here for a reason. Your people think differently than ours. You see possibilities where we see only problems." As the first day of this historic encounter drew to a close, Jinwu made his final log entry. He described not just the technical aspects of the contact, but the feeling of standing at the beginning of a new chapter in human history. Their visitors needed help, and Earth was determined to provide it. Against all odds, humanity's first contact with alien life would be defined not by fear or conflict, but by compassion and cooperation. Looking out at the massive fleet one last time before turning in for his rest period, Jinwu smiled. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now, he was content knowing that humanity's first step into the galactic community would be one of helping others in need. The real work was just beginning, and Earth's greatest challenge would be to save a civilization far more advanced than their own. Park Sun-ho stared at the holographic display of the Galaxian ship's internal structure, his eyes burning from hours of continuous work. The bioorganic patterns pulsed before him, reminiscent of the bioluminescent algae he'd studied during his graduate work in marine biology before switching to aerospace engineering. "There's something familiar about these patterns," he muttered, zooming in on a particular section of the quantum drive system. The way the energy flowed through the organic pathways reminded him of how certain deep-sea creatures processed light and energy. Myra, the Galaxian engineer assigned to work with him, floated gracefully in the hologram's glow. Despite their alien appearance, with iridescent skin and elongated features, their expression of curiosity was unmistakably similar to a human's. "What do you see, Sun-ho?" "The way your ships process energy," he said, gesturing to the flowing patterns. "It's similar to how some Earth organisms handle bioluminescence. Look here. These pathways are almost identical to the chemical reactions in Noctiluca scintillans." Myra moved closer to examine the section he indicated. "Our ships are indeed partially biological. They grow and heal like living creatures, but the quantum drive damage has disrupted their natural regeneration cycle." Sun-ho felt excitement building as pieces of the puzzle began falling into place. He quickly pulled up data on various bioluminescent organisms, comparing their chemical processes to the Galaxian ship's systems. "What if we could modify Earth algae to jumpstart your ship's healing process?" Dr. Kang Jae-yun, who had been silently observing from the corner of the room, finally spoke up. "Park, that's completely untested. We can't risk experimenting with alien technology when lives are at stake." But Sun-ho was already running simulations. "Look at the molecular structure, Dr. Kang. The basic energy transfer mechanisms are compatible. If we can modify the algae's bioluminescent properties to match the quantum frequency of their ships." Myra's eyes widened as they followed his calculations. This could work. Our ships are designed to integrate with compatible biological systems. We never considered using Earth organisms because they seemed too primitive, but their simplicity might be exactly what we need." Dr. Kang stepped closer, her skepticism wavering as she examined the data. The algae would need significant genetic modification to survive in space and interface with alien technology. We already have the technology to modify organisms for space survival, Sun Ho pointed out. The International Space Station has been growing modified plants for years. We just need to adapt those techniques. The next 12 hours were a blur of activity. Sun Ho and Myra worked tirelessly, combining their knowledge of Earth biology and Galaxian technology. They discovered that certain species of algae could be modified to produce the exact frequency of energy the alien ships needed to restart their regeneration processes. Dr. Kang, initially the biggest skeptic, became their strongest advocate. She coordinated with marine biology labs around the world to gather the necessary specimens and began organizing the genetic modification process. The first test came 18 hours into their work. They introduced a small sample of modified algae to a damaged section of Myra's personal shuttle. Everyone held their breath as they watched the interaction through powerful microscopes. At first, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the algae began to glow with an otherworldly light. The damaged organic circuits of the shuttle started responding, reaching out to connect with the Earth organisms. "It's working," Myra whispered, their voice filled with awe. "The ship is accepting the algae as compatible biological material." Sun Ho watched as the damaged section began to heal, the alien technology integrating perfectly with the modified Earth organisms. It was beautiful, like watching coral grow in fast motion, but with patterns of light dancing through it. Dr. Kang quickly began organizing the scale-up of their operation. "We'll need massive quantities of algae to treat the entire fleet," she said, already making calls to oceanographic institutes worldwide. The news spread quickly through both human and Galaxian communities. What had seemed like an impossible engineering challenge was being solved by one of Earth's simplest life forms. The solution was elegant in its simplicity. Using modified versions of organisms that had evolved on Earth over billions of years to heal ships built by one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. As Sun Ho watched the first large-scale treatment being prepared, Myra approached him. "You know," they said, "our engineers would never have thought of this solution. We were too focused on complex technological answers. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the hardest to see." "That's one thing humans are good at," Sun Ho replied with a smile. "We're used to working with what we have and finding unexpected ways to solve problems." Dr. Kang joined them, carrying fresh data from the latest tests. "The modified algae is exceeding all our expectations. At this rate, we could begin full-scale treatment of the fleet within days." As they watched the glowing algae being prepared for transport to the Galaxian ships, Sun Ho felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Humanity's first major contribution to an advanced alien civilization would come not from their most sophisticated technology, but from their understanding of the simple yet extraordinary life forms that share their world. The greatest engineering challenge they had ever faced was being solved by the most unexpected combination: Earth's primitive algae and humanity's ability to think outside conventional boundaries. It was a solution that would not only save the Galaxian fleet, but would also mark the beginning of a technological and cultural exchange that would benefit both civilizations. Director Choi Yun-soo stood at the window of Seoul's Global Emergency Response Center, watching streams of data flow across multiple holographic displays. The center, originally built for handling natural disasters, had become the heart of humanity's largest rescue operation. "Status report on Habitat Ring 1, she asked, turning to face the international team assembled before her. "The framework is 80% complete," reported her deputy. "The Russian space station modules are successfully linked with the Chinese and American sections. We're ahead of schedule." In orbit, these temporary habitats were taking shape like giant rings around Earth, constructed from repurposed space stations, experimental habitats, and rapidly manufactured new modules. It was humanity's greatest feat of space engineering, accomplished in mere days through unprecedented global cooperation. Commander Baek Ta-won's voice came through from the moon base. We've prepared the lunar facilities to receive the first group of Calaxian children and elderly. The modified atmosphere systems are working perfectly. The moon base, originally a small research station, had been quickly adapted to serve as a secondary haven for the most vulnerable Calaxian refugees. Its lower gravity made it ideal for those struggling with Earth's stronger gravitational field. Yun-Su watched as the first shuttle of Calaxian families approached the completed section of Habitat Ring 1. The aliens' bioluminescent skin cast a gentle glow inside their transport vessel, visible even from the distant cameras. "This is Calaxian Transport 1, came a soft voice. We are overwhelmed by your people's efforts. Never have we seen such rapid construction. We work well under pressure," Yun-Su replied warmly. "Please proceed to Docking Bay 3. Our welcome team is standing by." The welcome team, led by Commander Baek, had trained intensively for this moment. They had learned Calaxian customs and prepared appropriate accommodations based on their unique biological needs. The habitats featured special lighting that mimicked their home world and carefully calibrated atmospheric conditions. As the first Calaxian families entered the habitat, their reactions were broadcast to the control center. Children with softly glowing skin pressed against viewing windows, their eyes wide with wonder at the sight of Earth below. Parents held their young ones close, finally allowing themselves to relax after months of uncertainty. "Look how they help each other," one Calaxian elder remarked, watching humans from different nations working seamlessly together. "We were told humans were divided, yet here they are, united." Commander Baek helped a Calaxian child adjust to the artificial gravity. "How are you feeling, little one?" he asked gently. The child's skin pulsed with gentle colors, their way of expressing emotions. "It feels like home," they said simply, causing several humans nearby to blink back tears. Back in Seoul, Yun-Su coordinated the next phase. More habitats were under construction, each one incorporating lessons learned from the first. The operation was consuming resources at an unprecedented rate, but every nation on Earth had pledged support. Director Choi called out her communications officer. "We're receiving messages from civilians worldwide. They're offering their homes to Calaxian families who might want to experience Earth culture." Yun-Su smiled. Despite all preparations, this spontaneous outpouring of hospitality hadn't been planned for. "Tell them we'll coordinate with Calaxian cultural officers to arrange visits once the emergency phase is complete." As night fell over Seoul, the orbital habitats became visible from Earth, new stars in the sky, bearing hope for two civilizations. Commander Baek sent his evening report. The first 1,000 Calaxian refugees were safely settled, with more arriving hourly. The Calaxians shared their music that night, haunting melodies that rippled through the habitats in waves of light and sound. Humans and aliens alike paused in their work to listen, feeling the weight of the moment. A young Calaxian asked Commander Baek, "Why do you help us so much? We have nothing to offer in return right now." Baek thought for a moment before responding. "Because someday we might need help too. And because it's the right thing to do." Director Yun-Su received this exchange in her report and saved it. It captured everything about Operation Safe Haven, not just the technical achievement, but the spirit behind it. As she prepared to finally rest after 36 hours of continuous work, a final message came from the Calaxian fleet commander. "Your people have shown us that technological advancement isn't the only measure of civilization. You've given our people more than shelter. You've given us hope." Yun-Su looked once more at the glowing habitats visible in Seoul's night sky. Humanity had risen to its greatest challenge, not through military might or technological superiority, but through compassion and unity. In helping others, they had discovered the best in themselves. The operation was far from over, but its success was already changing both species. As humans and Calaxians worked side by side in space, old barriers of language and culture fell away, replaced by a shared understanding that transcended their differences. Operation Safe Haven was becoming more than a rescue mission. It was the beginning of a new chapter in the history of both civilizations. Song, Minji bent over her workstation aboard the converted oil rig, now serving as an emergency repair facility for the Calaxian fleet. Warning signals flashed across her screen. The aliens' life support systems were degrading faster than expected. The algae solution had helped their quantum drives, but the environmental systems were another matter entirely. The pressure differentials are all wrong, she muttered, studying the data from the failing systems. After 15 years of designing deep-sea equipment, she recognized the patterns. The Calaxian ship's life support worked similarly to how deep-sea creatures maintain their internal pressure. Rohan, her Calaxian counterpart, moved closer to examine her screens. Their bioluminescent skin pulsed with worried patterns. We have perhaps 6 hours before the systems fail completely. We've never encountered this type of cascade failure before. Minji pulled up schematics from her previous work on deep-sea pressure vessels. Look at this, she said, pointing to a diagram. Your ships maintain life support using similar principles to how our deep-sea creatures handle extreme pressures. What if we adapted our technology to work with your systems? Rohan's eyes widened as they studied the diagrams. These are remarkably similar to our basic designs, but can your technology handle the quantum variations in our ships? We'll modify it, Minji said, already sending messages to her old colleagues at various marine research stations. Our deep-sea equipment is designed to handle extreme conditions. Space isn't so different. It's just a different kind of pressure we're dealing with. They worked frantically, combining human pressure regulation technology with Calaxian quantum systems. Minji's experience with deep-sea vessels proved invaluable as they adapted the principles to work in space. Every minute counted as the life support systems continued to degrade. The main challenge, Minji explained while calibrating a prototype, is that your ships need to maintain a complex balance of pressures we've never dealt with before. But the basic principles are the same as keeping a submarine stable at crushing depths. Rohan helped integrate the modified human technology with their ship systems. It's elegant, they admitted. We became so focused on quantum mechanics that we overlooked simpler solutions. The first test came 5 hours into their work. They installed the modified pressure regulators in a small section of one ship. Minji held her breath as they activated the system. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, gradually, the warning signals began to fade. It's stabilizing, Rohan announced, their skin glowing brighter with excitement. The pressure differentials are evening out. Minji quickly began coordinating the production of more units. Her old colleagues from marine engineering facilities worldwide joined the effort, converting deep-sea equipment into space-worthy versions. Factories that once made submarine parts now worked around the clock producing modified components for alien ships. We'll need to install these throughout the fleet, she said, studying the logistics. Can your people handle the installations while we keep producing units? Rohan nodded. Our maintenance crews can adapt quickly. They're already familiar with similar principles, even if the technology is different. As they worked, Minji couldn't help but appreciate the irony. Her career studying the deepest parts of Earth's oceans was now helping save people from beyond the stars. The pressure systems she designed for the darkness of the ocean depths were being modified to work in the darkness of space. The installation teams moved quickly through the fleet. Ship after ship reported stabilizing life support systems. The modified pressure regulators weren't just working. They were working better than anyone had expected. Your technology is surprisingly compatible with ours, Rohan observed as they monitored the installations, perhaps because both were developed to handle extreme environments. Minji watched the status updates flowing in. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. We just needed to look at the problem from a different angle. With just 30 minutes to spare before the critical failure point, the last system was installed. The entire fleet's life support stabilized, protected by a hybrid of human and Calaxian technology. What had seemed impossible hours ago had become reality through the combination of deep-sea engineering and alien quantum mechanics. How did you think to use ocean technology in space? Rohan asked, as they finally took a moment to rest. Minji smiled tiredly. The deep ocean and space aren't so different. Both are dark, cold, and trying to kill you. We've just had more practice dealing with one than the other. A message came through from the Calaxian fleet commander, expressing amazement at how human technology designed for ocean depths had saved their advanced ships. It was another reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. As Minji finally allowed herself to relax, she looked out at the massive alien ships now safely stabilized. Their hulls glowed softly against the starfield, their life support systems now protected by technology that had evolved from humanity's exploration of Earth's oceans. It was a powerful reminder that all exploration, whether of the ocean depths or the stars above, shared common principles. The race against time had been won not through advanced quantum mechanics, but through humanity's experience in handling the crushing pressures of their own world's depths. The next challenge would undoubtedly come soon, but for now, Minji was content knowing that thousands of Calaxian lives had been saved by technology, born from humanity's determination to explore their own oceans. Sometimes, she reflected, the solutions to space problems could be found in the depths of Earth's seas. Nam Jia sat cross-legged in the observation dome of Habitat Ring 3, surrounded by curious Calaxian children. Their skin rippled with colors that reflected their excitement as she showed them traditional Korean watercolor paintings she had brought from Earth. In our culture, we try to capture not just what something looks like, but its essence, she explained, holding up a painting of mountains shrouded in mist. The Calaxian children's skin shifted to match the soft blues and greens of the artwork. Terry, a young Calaxian scholar, leaned forward to examine the brushstrokes. It's fascinating how you use water to create these effects. Our art is usually created with light and movement. To demonstrate, Terry's skin began to pulse with intricate patterns that flowed like liquid light. The other Calaxians joined in, their combined bioluminescence creating a living light show that took Jaya's breath away. "This is beautiful," Jaya whispered, quickly reaching for her tablet to record the display. "Are these patterns telling a story?" Terry nodded, their light patterns shifting to softer hues. "It's one of our traditional tales about star travelers. But watching your Earth art has given me an idea. What if we combined our styles?" Over the next few days, Jaya and Terry worked together to organize what would become the first human Calaxian art exhibition. They set up a large space in the Habitat's community area, where Earth artists could display their work alongside Calaxian light artists. "We should add music," Terry suggested one morning, while helping Jaya arrange a display of pottery. "Our people create songs with light and vibration, but I've been listening to your Earth music. The emotions are so similar, even if the methods are different." Jaya contacted musicians on Earth, and soon the Habitat was filled with an incredible mix of human and Calaxian music. Classical orchestras played while Calaxian light singers created accompanying visual symphonies. Korean drummers performed alongside Calaxian resonance artists, creating rhythms that could be both heard and seen. The cultural exchange grew beyond art and music. Jia watched in amazement as Calaxian children learned Earth games, their natural bioluminescence adding new dimensions to simple activities like hide and seek. Human children, in turn, learned Calaxian movement games that involved creating synchronized light patterns. "We never expected to find so many similarities," Terry said one evening, as they watched a group of human and Calaxian families sharing a meal together. The Calaxians had brought their own food, but the act of gathering to eat was surprisingly similar across species. Jaya nodded, taking notes on her tablet. "It seems some experiences are universal. Family, art, music, sharing food. We express them differently, but the core meanings are the same." The festival itself exceeded everyone's expectations. Thousands of humans and Calaxians gathered in the orbital habitats to share their cultures. Earth dancers performed under Calaxian light sculptures. Children from both species created artwork together, combining paint and bioluminescence in ways never seen before. A particularly moving moment came when a human choir performed alongside Calaxian light singers. The humans sang an ancient Earth song about hope and survival, while the Calaxians created waves of color that interpreted the music visually. There wasn't a dry eye, human or Calaxian, in the audience. "This is more than just cultural exchange," Terry observed, their skin glowing with warm, happy colors. "We're creating something entirely new together." Jaya agreed, watching as a group of human artists worked with Calaxian light sculptors to create a massive installation representing both species' journey through space. It's proof that art and creativity can bridge any gap, even between the stars. The festival's success led to regular cultural exchange programs. Calaxian families began visiting Earth to learn about human cultures firsthand, while human artists and musicians traveled to the orbital habitats to collaborate with Calaxian creators. Terry started teaching Calaxian light art to human students, while learning Earth painting techniques. "Each method shows us different ways of seeing the universe," they explained to Jia. "Together, we can create art that neither of our species could make alone." As Jaya completed her daily observations, she reflected on how quickly barriers had fallen away. What had started as a rescue mission had evolved into a rich cultural exchange that was changing both species. The Calaxians were learning to appreciate static art forms, while humans were discovering new ways to incorporate light and movement into their creative expressions. In the habitat's garden area, a permanent exhibition was established featuring collaborative works. Here, Earth paintings were displayed alongside Calaxian light sculptures, while speakers played fusion music combining human instruments with Calaxian resonance tones. "I think this is just the beginning," Jaya told Terry as they watched a group of children, human and Calaxian, creating art together. "We have so much more to learn from each other." Terry's skin rippled with patterns of agreement. "Perhaps this is why our ships failed near Earth. The universe wanted our cultures to meet and grow together." As the first cultural festival drew to a close, Jaya looked out at Earth glowing below them. The orbital habitats had become more than just emergency shelters. They were now centers of artistic and cultural exchange, proving that creativity and expression could unite even the most different of species. The legacy of these first exchanges would continue long after the Calaxian fleet was repaired, setting the foundation for a lasting relationship between two civilizations that had found common ground in their love of art, music, and shared experiences. Captain Oh Dong-hyuk stared at the solar monitoring data with growing concern. The approaching storm was unlike anything they had seen before, a massive surge of solar radiation that threatened both the Calaxian fleet and Earth's orbital installations. "How long do we have?" he asked, turning to Seri, his Calaxian co-pilot. Their skin pulsed with worried patterns of deep blue and purple. 3 hours at most, Seri replied, their fingers dancing over the holographic controls. "Our ship's shields are still at half strength from the previous damage. They won't withstand this level of radiation." Dong-hyuk pulled up the experimental shield technology they had been developing, a hybrid system that combined Earth's electromagnetic deflectors with Calaxian quantum shielding. It hadn't been fully tested yet, but they were out of options. "We need to deploy the shield network now," he decided. "It's not perfect, but it's our only chance to protect both fleets." Their ship, a modified Earth vessel equipped with Calaxian technology, moved quickly among the fleet. They had to install shield generators at precise points to create an interconnected protective barrier. Each generator had to be manually activated and synchronized. "The storm is accelerating," warned the Earth Space Command through their comms. "Estimated 2 hours until impact." Seri's skin flickered with determination. "We can do this, Dong-hyuk. Our peoples have accomplished impossible things together already." They worked methodically, their ship darting between the massive Calaxian vessels and human stations. Each generator deployment required perfect timing and positioning. Dong-hyuk handled the navigation while Seri managed the complex shield harmonics. The first signs of the storm appeared. streams of charged particles that made their instruments crackle with interference. The generators they had already placed created visible bubbles of protection, shimmering with both electromagnetic and quantum energy. Shield network at 40% coverage, Seri reported. Their skin now pulsed rapidly with stress and concentration. The pattern isn't stable yet. Dong-Kuk pushed their ship harder, racing to position the remaining generators. Years of experience as a rescue pilot helped him navigate the increasingly dangerous space between vessels. Solar radiation was beginning to affect their systems. "Our ship's shielding is failing," he noted calmly, even as warning lights flashed across their console. "We have to complete the network before we return to safety." Seri nodded, their skin now glowing with a steady, determined light. They had worked together long enough that words weren't always necessary. Both understood the stakes, thousands of lives depending on their success. As they placed the final generators, the storm hit its first wave. Their ship rocked violently, systems flickering. Through the viewport, they could see the massive solar flare approaching, a wall of deadly energy bearing down on the fleet. "Activating full network now," Seri announced, their hands steady as they initiated the sequence. The shield generators hummed to life, creating interconnected fields of protection. The hybrid technology responded better than anyone had hoped, forming a stable barrier around both fleets. Just in time. The full force of the storm struck moments later, battering against their newly established shields. Dong-Kuk held their ship steady as they monitored the shield's strength. The combined human-Calaxian technology was holding, protecting everyone within its bubble. "Look at that," Seri whispered, their skin glowing with wonder. The shield network was visible now, a beautiful array of electromagnetic and quantum energies dancing together to hold back the solar storm. From their position, they could see both fleets sheltered within the protective barrier, human stations and Calaxian ships side by side, safe under the same shield. It was a powerful symbol of what their species could achieve together. The storm raged for hours, but the shields held. When it finally passed, cheers erupted across all communication channels. Both fleets had survived without damage, protected by technology that neither species could have created alone. As they finally guided their ship back to dock, exhausted but triumphant, Dong-Kuk turned to Seri. "We make a good team," he said simply. Seri's skin rippled with patterns that Dong-Kuk had learned to recognize as happiness. "Yes," they agreed. "Perhaps that's the greatest discovery our peoples have made, how well we work together." Later, as they submitted their mission report, Dong-Kuk realized that their success had implications beyond just surviving the storm. The shield technology they had developed would help both species explore space more safely. What had started as an emergency solution had become another bridge between their civilizations. The Joint Human-Calaxian Space Command decided to maintain the shield network, upgrading it for permanent use. It would protect not just against solar storms, but other space-based threats that either species might face. As Dong-Kuk watched maintenance crews reinforcing the shield generators, he smiled. In facing this crisis together, humans and Calaxians had once again proved that their differences made them stronger. Their combined technology, like their combined crews, worked better together than apart. Seri joined him at the observation window, their skin now showing the calm patterns of accomplishment. Together, they watched Earth's sun, now looking peaceful again despite its recent fury. They had faced its worst and survived, not as separate species, but as one united fleet. The final push against the solar storm had done more than save their ships. It had proved once again that the greatest challenges could be overcome when different peoples worked together, combining their strengths and learning from each other. Han Yujin stood before the combined assembly of human and Calaxian leaders in the main orbital habitat's conference chamber. Behind her, Earth shone like a blue jewel through the vast observation windows, while the restored Calaxian fleet gleamed with renewed energy in the distance. "In just 3 months," she began, her voice clear and steady, Our joint efforts have produced technological advances that would have taken each species decades to develop alone. She gestured to the holographic display, showing the various innovations they had created together. Fleet Commander Daldy's skin rippled with agreeing patterns of light as they moved forward to stand beside her. When we first arrived, damaged and desperate, we never imagined this outcome. We sought temporary shelter but found instead a civilization whose creativity and determination matched our own. Yu Jin displayed images of the hybrid technologies they had developed, the bioorganic repair systems using earth algae, the deep-sea pressure adaptations that saved their life support, and the combined shield network that had protected them from the solar storm. But perhaps our greatest achievement, Yu Jin continued, has been learning how our different approaches to science and technology can complement each other. The Calaxians' advanced quantum mechanics, combined with humanity's practical problem-solving, has opened new possibilities for both our peoples. The assembly watched as she demonstrated the newest development, a communication system that used both light-based Calaxian technology and Earth's radio waves, creating a method of faster-than-light communication that neither species had achieved alone. As the Calaxian fleet prepares to depart, Yu Jin said, "We're not saying goodbye to friends in need whom we helped. We're beginning a partnership with equals who have taught us as much as we taught them." Daldy stepped forward, their skin glowing with formal patterns of ceremony. "In recognition of the bonds we have formed, and the future we see together, I hereby declare Earth a sister world to our home planet, Calaxis. This marks not just an alliance, but a family bond between our peoples." The announcement was met with applause from both humans and Calaxians. Yu Jin watched as members of both species embraced or exchanged their respective gestures of friendship. 3 months of working together had taught them all how to bridge their differences. "The technology exchange program will continue," Yu Jin announced, "with regular visits between our worlds. We've already selected the first group of human scientists to travel to Calaxis, and Calaxian researchers who will remain on Earth." In the habitat's docking bay, preparations for departure were underway. Yu Jin walked with Daldy, observing the activity. Calaxian families bid farewell to their human friends, promising to stay in touch through their new communication network. Children from both species exchanged small gifts and drawings. "Did you ever imagine this outcome when you first detected our damaged fleet?" Dahlia asked, their skin showing patterns of thoughtful reflection. Yu Jin smiled. "Nobody did. We were all focused on solving immediate problems, but in doing so, we discovered how much we could learn from each other." The departure ceremony was scheduled for the next day. As the final preparations were made, Yu Jin reviewed the massive database of shared knowledge they had created. It contained everything from scientific breakthroughs to cultural exchanges, a foundation for future cooperation between their species. The next morning, as the Calaxian fleet prepared to leave, Yu Jin watched from the command center. Each ship now carried elements of Earth technology, just as Earth stations now incorporated Calaxian innovations. It was a visible symbol of how both civilizations had grown together. Dalyi made their final address to the combined audience. "We came here as refugees, finding not just help but true partnership. Though we return home now, we leave with the knowledge that we have family among the stars. Earth will always be our second home." As the fleet began its departure, their ships created a beautiful light display, a traditional Calaxian farewell gesture, but performed in colors that humans had taught them to appreciate. The effect was stunning, a perfect blend of both cultures. Yu Jin felt a deep sense of satisfaction as she watched the fleet depart. In 3 months, they had not just saved a stranded civilization. They had forged a partnership that would benefit both species for generations to come. The first human ships would follow the Calaxian fleet within weeks, beginning regular trade and cultural exchanges. Already, scientists from both species were planning joint research projects, eager to combine their knowledge in new ways. As the last Calaxian ship disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Yu Jin turned to her team. "This isn't an ending," she said. It's just the beginning of something much bigger. She looked out at Earth below them, thinking about how much had changed. Humanity had faced its greatest challenge and emerged not just successful, but transformed. They had proved themselves equals to an advanced civilization, not through military might or technological superiority, but through creativity, determination, and the willingness to learn and grow. The stars seemed brighter somehow, now that they knew friends waited out there. The universe had become a little smaller, a little friendlier, and full of possibilities that neither humans nor Calaxians had imagined before their paths crossed.